Gotta get ready. All right, let's get this meeting called to order. Welcome, everybody. And again, thank you for all the tremendous work that you're doing on this budget. I know it's not easy, pulling all this stuff together and presenting it. I was in the office the other day and a young lady was just working her hands off to make it happen. And I really appreciate it. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our city manager, Richard White.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, council members. Today is our second of 4 workshops, and today we'll have this one and then the next one scheduled for March 20th. This will be a presentation of our department heads of their requests. Today we'll hear from police, inspections, planning, information technology, engineering, human resources, administration, and finance. And our budget process kicked off in September, so as the mayor's mentioned, staff has been working very diligently on our budget process. They've been submitting their operating, staffing, and capital requests to the finance department. We're not at the point yet of balancing the budget. There's still some work to do. I think the good news we saw today is inflation's down to 2.9%, but there's still some uncertainty in the economy. So we still have some work to do in terms of balancing our budget. As you all know, we're required by state statute to have a balanced budget by June 30th. And so we'll do this workshop today. We'll have the next one on April 10th. And then the city manager recommended the budget will be available on May 5th, and that'll be followed by a public hearing and adoption of the budget. So with that being said, if there are no other questions or comments, we'll get started with the police, and our police chief, Mitch McKinney, will get us started.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
So I've got a little bit of my own technology just to keep me focused and make sure that I am able to take any questions you have and report back to you later. I'm assuming this is ready to go. There we go. All right. So I'm going to talk about a couple of items that were not part of the PowerPoint with the caveat that I won't go beyond my time restrictions. And I hear, we okay, Kurt? Hear a little bit of feedback. All right, so I have been consistent since I started my tenure here talking about our strategic plan, the Mebane Police Department strategic plan. We just finished our first year, 2024, of this 3-year cycle. We were able to make some really good progress thanks to the support of city leadership, council members, and my internal team. Each year there is a specific focused goal within our structure that we're trying to achieve. So for 2024, our biggest goal beyond just committing to enhancing safety in the community was building out our special operations unit. As a part of that, it had a synergistic effect with a request that council approved for some reorganization within the police department. So this year we're going to work toward the International Association of Chiefs of Police Trust Building Campaign. We already have our policies almost in alignment with that campaign, and that's a significant commitment for the police department to follow that process. But I do want to talk about some key highlights of 2024. So the fiscal year 2024-2025 achievements reflect progress in both staffing structure and our operational capability. We were able to designate division commanders at the rank of captain after an assessment process, and we created additional lieutenants positions as mid-level managers. The reason that we wanted, or that I feel like it's important that we have captains designated is for division command, is it provides additional leadership oversight, and the mid-level managers enhance our ability to be efficient and flexible in how we supervise and manage our staff. They also serve as mentors to our line level supervisors, and generally are more experienced than an entry-level sergeant or at that time corporal. We did have capital improvements that were supported through equipment upgrades. We purchased 3 new patrol cars. I'm very happy to report we were not as impacted by supply chain issues with that because we got ahead of it. We have a pretty good network of figuring out who has the vehicles that we need available and opening a discussion early. If the capital improvement budget for this coming year is approved, which we anticipate, with some caveat of we don't know what that looks like. We're already in the process of doing that same work again to ensure that we're getting the equipment in efficiently. The last part that I would like, or last highlight of this past fiscal year that I would like to talk about is not only our work, Mebane Police Department's work with the disaster relief, but actually the entire community's work. We had a tremendous amount of support through donations and coordination and gifting, where the community of Mebane, the stakeholders here, and people that really were touched by the disaster that happened in the western part of the state partnered with us to move a lot of essential items to that community. And city leadership approved allowing some of our staff to go up there and help them. And that's important because if we ever have a disaster or an event occur where we need those resources, we have built a relationship with individuals across the state that I don't want to say they owe us, but there's a camaraderie there and a willingness to help us when we need it. And in my opinion, that's how it's supposed to work. So what are our goals for 25, 26? I mentioned earlier the International Association of Chiefs of Police Trust Building Campaign. As an organization, we are going to pledge to implement these key policies. The reason that's important is there's 6 key focus areas essential to enhancing trust and collaboration between our community and our police department. The key areas where the trust building campaign is designed to focus and enhance a more robust operational experience with Mebane Police Department involve scrutiny of bias-free policing and making sure that we're making decisions that are based on evidence-based, what we're seeing and what we're engaging with, and not bias-based or subjective on the part of the officer. We're also looking at use of force because use of force is a high liability area, obviously. We want to make sure that our officers understand when they can actually use a reasonable amount of force to keep them safe, keep the individual safe, and keep the community safe. There is some discussion about potentially officers not being as willing to use a reasonable amount of force, not in a way where they're using an exceptionally high use of force, but not engaging in use of force. And we want to make sure they're safe and that they understand what they can do and what they can't do under color of law. Leadership and leadership culture is incredibly important to me. Again, it goes back to what I talked to all of you about when I first started. We are going to be a professional police department that treats everyone with respect and looks for ways to give people their dignity back, both internally and externally. It's incredibly important to the foundation of our police department. Give you a quick update because we're going to talk about recruitment, hiring, and retention. Very challenging times for public safety right now, specifically police. To date, we have had no one leave Mebane Police Department to seek a career in another location as a police officer. So far, morale is maintaining levels of what I would perceive rhetorically without any data to say people like working here. They feel like they're part of this team. We're still working on communication issues. We're not perfect, but we're pretty happy with where we are with recruitment. Currently, we have 3 open positions. We have 1 individual that we are sponsoring in our BLET that will be testing in about 2.5 more months. She is doing very well. We anticipate onboarding her as an officer, all things being equal, as long as she's able to pass BLET, and I'm confident that'll happen. We also have several good quality candidates that are either in the middle of background processes or toward the end of background processes to fill our remaining spaces. So I'll knock on a little bit of wood. We're in pretty good shape with recruitment and retention. Yes, sir.
How do these key focus areas align with your CALIA accreditation?
So the CALIA accreditation, CALIA is supporting IACP's trust building campaign. Many of the concepts, there's a cohesive um, structure there where IACP is strongly connected to CALIA and CALIA is strongly connected to IACP. CALIA is a supportive partner for this.
So they complement each other.
Yes, sir. Many of the chiefs that are part of IACP are also coming from CALIA accredited agencies, similar to Mebane. Great question. Victim services, we are still focusing on the mental health aspect of what our response operationally should be in the field. We are continuing to move toward the goal of getting all of our officers crisis intervention trained. We're about 90% there. We're somewhat at the mercy of when we can get those officers into the CIT classes, but Alamance County has been running those pretty consistently on a quarterly basis, so we're getting there. My memory is we had around 80% of the department when I first started, and we're in the 90th percentile now for CIT trained officers, which is great. We also just partnered with Orange County for their multi-crisis disciplinary team, MDP team, to be a member of that. We know that our community in the Orange County section of Mebane is growing, specifically residentially, and as a result of that, naturally, we will have increased calls for service there, and there may be opportunities for us to utilize victim services from there. But we had our first meeting last month, and pretty excited about that's been about a 2.5 or 3.5 year goal for Orange County, and they have been overwhelmingly supportive of Mebane being part of that. So looking forward to that. And then community relations, always, I mean, that's where it's at for us. We want to make sure that we don't take for granted the trust the public has in us. And if that erodes, or if it's misplaced, or if it doesn't exist, what can we do to build those relationships, rebuild those relationships, or build them where they didn't exist?
I just want to take a second and commend you guys for that. Someone actually said something to me yesterday about how much they appreciate the press releases you've been doing, and keeping the public informed, and kind of getting ahead of maybe some rumors or some assumptions that people are making. So good job on that.
Well, and I appreciate that. We didn't, I will say in a public forum, Councilmember Burkholder and I did not collude, but we worked on a podcast this morning about addressing some of the concerns the community has, and some of the questions that we can answer sometimes. I have concerns about being able to do that consistently. Obviously, we want to. So that podcast will be coming out when PIO Kelly Hunter gets it ready, and it has some great information. It's relatively short. It also mentions some of our recent incidents that we've dealt with. All right. So personnel requests for Mebane Police Department for this fiscal year are limited to one part-time individual. We are looking at, if approved, utilizing and having a part-time crime data analyst who will help us analyze the large amount of data that we collect in a more efficient way. The other side of that is that individual will also be tasked with helping us be more consistent in getting that kind of information out to the community as a community liaison, and not necessarily not a PIO. That's not what I want to imply, but I guess I could say PIO light, and will help us be more consistent and efficient with getting that information out, which has been a direct request that I have continuously received from the community.
In this context, what is crime data? Is that evidence? Is that computer data? What actually is crime data?
So crime data would be the part 1 and part 2 crimes that we're responding to. It wouldn't necessarily be as granular as talking about specific amounts of evidence, but it would be how many car B&Es, for example, did we have in a particular community, and being able to put that information in
statistical kind of data.
Correct. Yes. So our anticipated requests for fiscal year 26, 27, and fiscal year 27, 28 are based on our multi-year staffing plan. We are asking at this moment in time, for 2 officers. A year from now, 2 years from now, we may ask for more. Never less, I promise. Nothing. I got, we're going to need some officers. And that's going to be, and it's important for me. I understand our budget restrictions, but we do want to make council aware that those requests will be coming in down the road.
The council's been pretty aggressive when it comes to the growth here in town. How, this is a loaded question, I apologize. How best are you looking forward to be proactive for hirings? Because we have some very large developments headed our way.
So we will take our guidance. I will take my guidance directly from the city manager, who will take his guidance from council. But our role and responsibility, I believe, is to show you and prioritize what is truly important when we're looking at, when we have to make these very challenging decisions and present that information to him. He then has to present it to you. And unfortunately, to use the cliche, the buck stops with council, and we appreciate that. I have been very pleasantly surprised with the support from council. I think we have a great one.
I guess what tools are you using to help look forward to provide that information? Again, the biggest one's gonna be the quarry development, to be honest.
Sure. So we're projecting out potential calls for service based on population density alone. But we have to, and I think it's very important for me to be able to compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. If I take a sector, any section of America, and I pick the right location that has the same numbers as the city of Mebane, it may not have the same community standards. It may not have the same type of policing. So the responsibility to me is to find a more Mebane-esque like community and make sure those comparisons are as equal as they possibly can be. And that is my goal.
Thank you.
All right, capital improvement projects request. We're looking at police vehicles ranked as number one. We need vehicles. We are working on a more robust fleet management plan to be able to present to you. We presented one last year to city leadership. We worked pretty diligently to upgrade that. We also have Captain Richardson and Lieutenant Underwood are going to be attending training, I believe it's next month in early April in Raleigh, specifically about fleet management and the challenges with fleet management. Our goal in sending them to that training is we're making better informed decisions on how to manage our fleet. How can we get the most out of our fleet? What is a reasonable amount of years of service for the fleet? And what can we tell our staff to do to make sure that our fleet is lasting as long as it possibly can? So I will tell you rhetorically, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, fleet vehicles seem to last a little better than they do now. I think that even though they're more expensive, they're just the parts that they're made out of are not as robust. We have a lot of plastic, a lot of aluminum in vehicles. They are safer, but unfortunately, mechanically, some of those parts wear out quicker. And we're aware of that, and we want to try to mitigate that as much as we can. The special event control trailer is something that we've been talking about purchasing at least since I came to work here. That is a trailer that would be used at special events. But wait, there's more. Clearly, we have the Dogwood Festival coming up, and we have, our traditional 4th of July event, our Halloween events, all the events you all are familiar with. The events that you see sometimes where this trailer can also support us is if we have a PI, personal injury crash, in a high traffic area. There are items that we can pull on this smaller trailer and be able to mitigate and move traffic away from the officers investigating it and all the public service safety team investigating that call. And that was the ask for why we wanted to use this trailer. We know we have enough responses in that space and with our special events to justify it. And in the grand scheme of things, it is a reasonably lower cost item. So those were our two capital improvement projects.
At the moment, I know we often will tap you guys to help us with like cones. I know we also this is for Mebane on the Move whenever we're doing our 5K event. And we work a lot with Public Works as well for like road stanchions and things. Is that kind of the extent of what you currently have for road management or
No, we also have access to the county's resources, and they've been very good about allowing us to borrow their event trailer, and we have our own city resources. Some of those, clearly, we're starting to see an increase in the kinds of um, events where we would be able to more efficiently improve safety by having that trailer. My concern is when we are competing against other cities that might request a county trailer. I just think we're big enough, we've got the storage space for it, and we've got the need for it, that us having our own trailer, it makes sense operationally.
So right now, we have access to that equipment, but we don't have it in the city.
We have some of it. We
Okay.
do have some barricades. We do, obviously, we have barricades, cones, yes. Specifically in a compact, efficient unit that I can move, or our staff can move around the city at a moment's notice to be able to improve safety. Depending on what we've got going on, we may have limited resources. If we have an event, if during Dogwood we have a PI crash, and we've, exhausted our current supplies, having this trailer on hand would be great to mitigate that.
For clarity though, you're not gonna have barricades in this trailer of the large size.
No, we won't have water barricades. It would be the small plastic
Stanchions.
stanchions. It would also have cones. There are some LED lights with it. They're like the sandwich board type that you see with the orange and white stripes. Just several different items on there to give us some flexibility on the scene.
Thanks.
What's the ratio of officers to vehicles that you operate with?
So right now we have one officer to 1-to-1.
1-to-1?
Yeah, 1-to-1.
Because you've got 5 officers in your hiring list in the future, but you've only got 2 vehicles in future years. That's why I asked that.
It's a great question, Councilmember White. We do have backup vehicles for when one of our primary vehicles is being serviced or it goes down. Historically, and we've been looking at this, we've lost a couple of vehicles to crashes. Most of those, for the public watching and for your benefit, have been where our officers have been hit. And we need to, and we've been assertive about replacing those vehicles. Insurance challenges associated with that. If we've got a 5-year-old vehicle, we get X amount of money going back into the general fund. And sometimes that doesn't cover the cost. It appears that there have been a couple of times where that's happened, where we have just decided to use a vehicle we already had, what we call a breakdown vehicle, and replace that vehicle because we just, for whatever reason, prior to my tenure, didn't think about replacing that vehicle with a new vehicle. That's also going to be a part of our fleet management plan and making sure that we're following those particular instances very closely.
You don't think you've under budgeted for vehicles in the coming years? These are the numbers you expect.
These are reasonable numbers. Would I love to ask you for 2 more? Sure, but I try to present a reasonable budget. We can manage our needs with this number.
Thank you.
And meet operational guidelines.
Is your light trailer still in service? You guys still use that?
We still have it in service. Is subjective. Sometimes it works and sometimes it does. It could use some robust repair, sir. All right. One issue that affected and impacted our budget this year, clearly that's driven by our city population, because that's where the amount that we get billed for, is our pet adoption center subsidies. They increased this year pretty significantly. So for fiscal year 25-26, that number was $112,474. Fiscal year 26-27, it will be $168,465. So we had a $55,000 increase.
That's not on population alone.
That's
They went up in general.
so their fees went up for their cost, which we understand, but most of that is, my understanding, driven by population. Am I incorrect?
I'll defer to the city manager, but I think in other meetings, it was operational costs drove it more than population costs.
Okay. Then I will defer to you. Sure.
And this is, us taking dogs to the adoption center
This
and
is,
paying them as we go, or it's just our share?
it's just our share, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, as many dogs are lost on Facebook, you probably need 4 or 5 more officers.
That does seem to be a reoccurring theme on Facebook, sir.
Seen anything like in my life.
And well, there you have it, folks. Next year's budget, I'll put in for 4 more
Bad
officers. sir.
thing, our cats keep coming back. That's the,
Yes.
that's the good thing. But
Yes, they do.
I've never seen anything. I'm serious. It's unreal.
All right. So I know that says questions. I'm going to go back. There's one section here because I am a man of my word. I want to talk specifically about, I know we've talked a little bit in our previous sessions about the new police department. And I want to keep that at the forefront of your thought processes. So Assistant City Manager Mitchell and I had a discussion, and he asked me a question: what's the current size of your current building? And I told him that I thought it was around 14,000 square feet. And I have come to determine that that was not accurate. After I met with someone who knows a lot more about building structure and inspections, he informed me that our building is actually 6,200 square feet, 3,100 square feet up on top and 3,100 square feet on the bottom, which is significantly smaller and I think more in alignment to the number that you thought it was. So I guess I'm saying, Mr. Mitchell, you were yet again correct, and I was incorrect. I just want to share this with you, and then I'll take any questions you have. We all know Mebane's growing very quickly. Assistant Chief Byrd has talked about, he will be retiring at the end of this year, and he's the longest serving member of the police department that I have to rely on historical data. And when he first started, we had, I believe he said 12 police officers. We now are slotted for 46 police officers. And our plan, our future plan would have us adding at least 5 in the next 3 years. 2 to 3 will be the request. Candidly, we've outgrown the space we're in significantly. We have made the best of that space, and it is a great building. I humbly ask that you consider that police headquarters and the why behind it. But I also want to share a couple things with you. I'm up here obviously advocating for the police department, right? But I'm also advocating for my peers in the other departments, the planning department, Mebane Fire Department, inspections, IT, human resources, and even City Hall would benefit from reutilizing our current building. They would be able to move some staff in, some IT equipment in there. They would free up some parking. They could potentially free up a large section of the current planning building, potentially moving some city staff out of the City Hall footprint. And really what I'm trying to say is it legitimately is a win for the entire city. So I would ask that you think about that in your considerations for budget. I've spoken with my peers in the other departments, and we just, all we can do is present that information to you. But I will say this: rarely do you have a project that's going to, usually that project is standalone and only helps that one department. This particular project will really benefit the entire city staff if approved. And clearly it's not going through this year. That was never my intent to pitch that. But I do want to remind you that we're in a 6,200 foot square building. And I know parking is limited. We've been reviewing parking options. But we will be able to mitigate some of those issues as well once this project, if approved, it does go through. So,
Do we have any anticipation or date when the land would be available?
I believe we're still waiting on the contractor to meet some of the challenges that they had, but I'll defer to Preston is much more versed in that than I am.
They appear to be going through the normal operation or going through construction plan approval. Obviously, as the city attorney shared previously, we can't accept land until the street is built to the minimum standards, but they do seem to be going through their construction plan approval process. So,
Went through TRC now.
well, they already went through TRC to come before council for consideration, but after approval, they have to go through construction plan, the
Oh, okay.
construction plan process of TRC as well, yes.
Well, I would agree, Chief, but you can't continue to keep feeding more people with the same amount of food. We can't continue to cover the increase in population with the same amount of staff, same amount of building. One question, when we went through the CALIA, I always called it CALIA, but you call it CALIA, but accreditation, there were certain requirements like evidence rooms, fingerprint stuff. And is any of that with the growth affected, the accreditation affected by do you reach a point in accreditation? I know you're doing fire, but in law enforcement, do you reach a point where accreditation is affected by things like size and access to facilities based on population?
So that is a great question. The first part of that is we're not impacted, as there are two levels of CALIA accreditation. There's the tier 1, which is appropriate for an organization our size. And I'll brag on my staff, our evidence, and that's the primary area where we see challenges around evidence and evidence storage, because with case management through our court system slowing down, there's a backlog, but our evidence technician does an amazing job of maintaining the evidence rooms that we have access to. Right now, that has not been an issue. Because we are intentional about putting in our request to destroy items that have no evidentiary value, or the courts have already turned those over. But as population increases and our response to any criminal activity where we're taking in more evidence, could that impact it? Yes. I don't anticipate that being an issue for us currently for quite a while, sir.
Couple questions. First one for you, Chief. So just for the public knowledge, what are some top line items that would be significantly impacted with a new, larger building, larger headquarters, for the police department?
Let me make sure. So what would cost-wise?
What benefits would there be? The officers would probably have their own desks. They'd be easier to accomplish tasks. What would be helpful for the police department?
So we would be able to spread out. We would be able to offer more programming, public safety programming based events in the police department. And while I love Recreation and Parks and our relationship with them, when we're building community trust, there is a significant difference in bringing our community in to see our building and see our resources. And it's that tactile ability to touch it, feel it, and be a part of it that I can't recreate in a space that, for example, the Mebane Arts Center allows me to use for those events now. Being able to host that, being able to host training for my staff where we can offset the cost of having specialized instructors come in, because we're able to have additional seats for other peer agencies that want to make this a location they can come to, is incredibly beneficial. And just having enough space to house future staff members is going to be critically important. So those would be the top three areas where I think where the community can see the benefit. I guess the last one would be probably efficiency in moving around the city a little more quickly, to be able to increase our call response time. We are challenged sometimes when the train comes through briefly, when we're on this side of the railroad tracks, but we're so close to it that inevitably the train, it's almost like it has a mind of its own sometimes.
I'm going to derail the conversation. I apologize to council about this. I know Mr. Jonathan White and I were out having a conversation, and a handful of community members came up, and I want to commend the department as well as the officers that responded to the stabbing over at Lowe's. I want to say everyone I've spoken to have said that they arrived there in less than 2 minutes, and they were Johnny on the spot. So I deeply, deeply appreciate that, just to build on what you're talking right there. So thank you. The second thing, more or less for Mr. White, and Mr. Mitchell, now that we know that the department's, or the building, excuse me, is about half the size of what we were expecting, does that impact our urgency for building the new headquarters, the new police department?
I'll just add, we'll need to check. I'm not entirely sure Chief McKinney's revised square footage is correct either. So, but we need to check on that, just to be clear. But
You didn't let the inspection Cliff measure it, did you?
Mr. Mayor, you would be a great investigator, a great detective.
He has that guilty look.
Well, the fact that I telegraphed my look back there.
Yeah, that
How about this? I will, if I have to measure it by hand myself, by this afternoon, I will get you the exact square footage. According to county GIS, I believe, that's where the revised
Well,
footprint came from.
there's no doubt, there's urgency. There's no doubt we need it. There's no doubt as we grow, and we're definitely growing with what we have units and houses and townhomes approved. It's going to be needed sooner than later. And so whatever the size of your facility is, it was a post office and they didn't have a whole lot of mail back then. So the size is incidental. It's just, it needs to be replaced. And again, sooner than later.
I would agree.
Now, how we're going to pay for it is a whole different ball of wax.
Maybe if we could collect fees for all the dogs we find on Facebook and use that. Might be an opportunity.
That was the chief that said that, not.
Thank you all for your time. Any other questions for me?
Now we'll get down to it.
Need some calculators?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to do is thank Mayor Hooks for taking up for me. I appreciate that.
I got your back.
Thank you, sir. I hope council's fine today. I will first thank you for the budget last year, for approving our budget last year. Hopefully this will be painless. This is our organizational chart, which is no change. It's the same as it was last year. We still have Mr. Martin as a part-time employee, and everybody else, staff is the same. Good. Yeah, Keith's up there. Well,
Okay.
How many,
yeah, he's in right under me.
how many inspectors you have at level, have all level 3s and 5 disciplines?
Myself, Richard, and Keith has all his level 3s, but electrical, and Carl has probationary 3s. And right now we got Rebecca and Buck, which we'll get into a little bit, but they're actually going up into trades now to level 2s. He does all, he has the other trades, just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, he has probationaries, yes. He's working on his plumbing right now. Just some of our highlights. We completed and launched our usage of the online well portal. We purchased a new truck this past year. Thank you guys for that. Rebecca and Brandon both received their building 1 this year and plumbing 1 certifications. I'm gonna give you some new numbers. These numbers on here was actually, when we put this together, but number of inspections, residentials we done last year was 7,400. Right now we have 5,500. We're about, halfway through. So commercial, we did 1,500, and right now we had about 1,200. Right now, last year we did 294 COs. Right now we have 209. And this year I wanted to let you see code enforcement, but you know, would actually put a little emphasis on our code enforcement officer. Rebecca, she did zoning and building. She's done 1,300 last year. This year, between to December, she's already at 870. Last year on our new homes, we did 295. These are front doors, single families. We, to date, right now, we're at 316. Apartments was 168 last year. We're at 112. And so at the totals last year, we were at 463. Totals to the date, 428. So we should meet all the past the numbers from that last year.
So didn't we have a 400 unit ceiling for COs?
Yes, sir. Well, that's what I think we're wanting to hit.
That's the goal, but also previous projects that were approved before the new wastewater capacity policy, they cannot be factored into that 400. It may be big projects that drive us over it, but for the most part, we've been close to, but approximately 400 a year.
Well,
And
I
that's
thought
what
Cliff was working on, he can take the rest of the year off, so.
He's a valuable employee, so we would need him the rest of the year.
I'm all for any changes. Just to continue on our highlights, we did 1,500 signs pulls. That's mostly Rebecca, actually. You know, we help out some, but that's mostly her. We had 36 cases that we found people working without permits. We had 115 high grass letters last year. So we demoed 608 Giles Street, 204 North First, and 205 North First on demolition of houses that were falling in. Right now, we're working with Lawson on I think it's 2 or 3 condemnations, other condemnations also. So we've been trying, as we're out and about and we get complaints, if we see a house that's, you know, falling in, it's a safety hazard or a hazard, you know, we're trying to get them and at least get them boarded up or at least get them torn down.
They're the ones on what was Fifth Street and before the new road.
Yeah, that's the
Good.
Katrinas. They are being moved at this time.
Good.
Yeah. The only thing to be left is to clean up. Again, they, like we talked about earlier, they received their plumbing and building certifications. And then we've already went over the inspections for Rebecca. That's up to date.
Do you guys ride around and verify or catch people who are doing work without permits, or you just get called on or something?
If we see them, if they're working without a permit and, you know, like an addition or something like that, yeah, we'll stop in and tell them they need to get a permit. And then if people call or complain, we go out.
So if you ride by and see a building behind somebody's house that wasn't there yesterday, but there was no permit for it.
Yeah, if they're building it, yeah, we would. Now,
They'd like to bring in a building on a.
Yeah. So if it's under a 12 by 12, which they wouldn't get a permit for that building permit, the code enforcement officer usually finds that. Yes, sir.
I get a lot of questions on these metal garages stuff that they come in and set up in about half a day. They require a permit.
Anything over 400 square feet.
Or, okay. So y'all watch for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, if, like I said, you know, we don't try to go out and police and, you know, look, but if we're out and about and we see something, yes, we stop and make sure to get permits and stuff. Our goals next year is Brandon and finish his level 1, which is electrical. He should be testing here in the next couple months. We still want to upgrade our portal system if possible, any way we can. We want to still encourage people, contractors, citizens to use the portal. It's a lot easier for plan review and a lot easier to issue the permits and to take money. We're going to send Taylor to get her notary this year, so we have a notary in the office. And of course, we want to keep continuing our great service and inspections and trying to keep everybody safe in Mebane. We got a couple fee changes. This is mostly going to affect contractors, not just more citizens, more contractors for big jobs. We cut fees a few years ago, and stuff, as things came in, and we gave incentives, and not to cover what we lost, so we had to bring back up the fees for that. Which we just moved a building permit from $5,000 to $20,000 to $100, which is annually is about $6,000. Then 50,000 to 500,000. We moved that back up to $5 per thousand, which is about $307,000. And over 500,000, we moved at $3.25 back to $4, which is on average about $8,500.
And I'm paraphrasing here, but state law doesn't allow you to collect more fees than it costs to do inspections.
Yes, sir.
So I would assume that our goal is to take all inspections, including fire marshal's office cost at the fire department, throw that into a pile, and if it comes out this amount of dollars, then we should have inspection fees that pretty much equal that. Is that correct?
That's correct. We include, the finance director includes any items that were allowed by general statutes, a portion of the city manager's salary, a portion of the assistant city manager's salary. So it's not just the two you mentioned, anything we can. I think a few years ago, we had a couple large industrial projects from discussing it with Cliff and other staff, that were highly automated that pushed us over the amount or close to the amount that the general statutes allow us, to where we were making more revenue than cost. I think there were some very large, unique automated industrial projects from our research. So we had to decrease at that point in time. But since those projects have been completed, this is why he's proposing an increase back to get us back to that full cost you referenced as well. So very well may be with the general statutes that we have years where we have to go up and down to meet the general statutes, but it will somewhat be defined by, from our research, these large automated industrial projects we're getting.
Well, that's a good note to add when you're, when I look at something like that, it's a lot easier for me to feel justified in increasing building permit rates to fully fund the inspections department rather than just saying we're going up on rates. If people know that, then they ebb and flow with the cost.
Yeah, and that was the point of raising it back up for the cost of the department.
Yeah, well, that ought to be a no-brainer. Yeah.
And the projected revenues on that is going to be for next year be $675,000, which is 50 more than what last year's budget, and 400,000, which is 75,000 more than last year's budget. Just some of the projects we completed. We're working on Keystone Apartments, Summit Church, Wingstop, Toros, 11th Street Apartments, Alpaca, the Kidney Center, McKay Books, Steel, Senator Ralph Scott, 550 and 70, Choke, Kate's Farm. I'm assuming that's the playground. The CVS remodel, Mebane Primary Care, Chick-fil-A, and then the ones we're working on right now, hopefully to finish up this year's La Quinta, Tractor Supply House, Cambro, Mornaga's expansion, and Kiewit. And here's just some of the jobs that we done. And any questions?
Yes, you might want to mention you did tour the police station.
Yeah, and we did tour the police station, looked at it. It would be great for us to give us more room, more parking. Hopefully, if we got it more room, I maybe could get another inspector to go to one trade. Each trade have its own inspector, and we'd have had the room to do that. That would be nice.
With the online portal, for folks wanting to, request a permit, and you were saying it's helpful for the general public to be able to do that. How do they access that? Is that just from the City of Mebane Inspections website?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Burkholder, the inspections director also worked with the PO to do a stream on that as well too, to make it more user friendly. It does
Yes.
seem to be more utilized by developers and contractors than individual citizens, but their information is out there as well.
Does the portal allow for folks to be able, like, as they're going through the process, say they have a question about, maybe one of the inspectors was out and they said, hey, I just wanted to clarify with, Keith or Richard about this note that I had. Is that something that's a feature of that portal too?
Yeah, so what we do is when we do an inspection, like if we turn it down, we will send you a inspection sheet telling you what the items are, and the person, the homeowner, the contractor, developer, whoever can just email us back. But 9 out of 10 times they call us.
Okay.
They call the office, and Taylor usually say, hey, look, can you call? Like today we had a gentleman call and I called him back. So, that's typically how we, do it. But yes, you can, get in touch with the inspector through the online portal.
Good. Thank you.
Yes.
So it's faster, they get a permit faster?
Yes, ma'am.
How much faster, like a week or quicker?
Oh, yeah, as soon as planning can approve it, it gets it to us. If it's residential, we get it out. Any other questions?
No. Thanks, sir.
So I get the next 4 months off. Is that what you said? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Here is an organizational chart of the Planning and Zoning Department as it looks today. Of course, as the director, I supervise 2 full-time planners, 1 part-time planner, and we also have some contracted support. I serve as primary staff to you all on council and board of adjustment, and also represent the city with the Burlington Graham Metropolitan Planning Organization, their technical committee, and then the Orange County Transit Staff Working Group. Our 2 full-time planners share some responsibilities, and then they also have some distinctions. They both participate in site plan review, construction plan review, plat review, permit review. They both are regularly taking phone calls and responding to emails from the public. And then they also are helping us research when we want to amend our ordinance and facilitate updates to our comprehensive plans. Mitchell is primary staff to our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, also known as the BPAC. He also represents our department on the Alamance Wellness Collaborative, which is organized by Impact Alamance. He began working for the city in January, so he is a fairly new face for everyone. Brianna has been with the city for over 2 years now. She is primary staff to our planning board and also to our technical review committee. And she represents the city at quarterly meetings for Stormwater Smart, and also an aging group that meets as part of Orange County's Master of Aging Plan. Brianna received her certified zoning official certificate in the fall, so she completed some coursework with the UNC School of Government and also passed an exam in order to receive that certification. And then our part-time planner is focused on zoning permits for fences, sheds, additions, things that an everyday person would want to do on their own property, and also has a few subdivisions assigned to him for single-family home permits. And our contracted support, they have special roles. Rachel Gaffney is a former member of our organization, and she's been helping catalog some historical zoning information. Tim Smith's a retired engineer who has designed some subdivisions in Mebane. He assists with plot plan and plat review, as well as some development tracking. And then we have the option to use Central Pines as needed when we need support from their planners. A big highlight of the current fiscal year, as you all know, has been updates to our comprehensive land development plan. This process is known as Mebane 2045, Planning for a Charming Tomorrow. And engagement from our community is critical to this process. And it all started in August when the council appointed a community advisory committee. So that's 14 members of the Mebane city limits and also our extraterritorial jurisdiction. That group has met 3 times already, and we will meet with them again in April. In the fall, we had a survey released as part of this effort, and we're very pleased with the results. We had over 940 people participate in the survey. We've also had public forums, one being in November where approximately 60 people attended, and the other most recently at the end of February, we had about 40 people attend. There is another survey available, so if you know anyone who's interested in this process, it closes on Monday. We, of course, will have another public forum and more ways to participate, but Kelly's been helping us push that out on social media, and we'd love your help as well.
How much participation are you getting from the growth areas, not in the city, or maybe not even in ETJ, or on your surveys?
We are tracking that. I'd have to look at an email I sent our consultant, but it has primarily been within our city limits in ETJ, but we have seen people outside of that participate. And we have, for the survey, put out yard signs, and we did it throughout the area that we're studying. So it wasn't just within our city limits. And I think, as might to be expected, it's more focused on people who are generally in Mebane, but we have seen some outside of it.
Well, that was one of the comments from press was, where would we involve the growth areas, even if they're not in ETJ or city? Yeah.
And I can work on getting some preliminary information together, but we'll definitely have that information together before the plan is presented to council about who all has been participating. We have been tracking it. Another highlight of this fiscal year has involved transit. The council approved an interlocal agreement in September to allow Link Transit to extend its orange route to Mebane with a financial contribution from the city for that. And so we have seen steady ridership since Link Transit began serving the Cone Health Park and Ride lot at the end of September. And that transit route will take folks from Mebane to the community college to Graham and then to downtown Burlington or the other way. And then Orange County adopted its short-range transit plan in October of 2024. And that short-range transit plan included a Mebane circulator. So that is the first step in seeing that service possibly be provided by Orange County. They have a transit tax, so it would be expected to be a reduced cost to the city if Orange County were to implement the circulator route.
And that will cover parts of the Alamance side too, correct?
Correct, and they have confirmed with Go Triangle that that is legally allowed. Looking forward to the next fiscal year, we are expecting that the comprehensive plan will be presented to Planning Board and Council for adoption in summer or fall of 2025. So we will see a transition to guidance for development proposals that we see. So I, of course, would like to see a successful transition for that. As staff to the Mebane BPAC, our department shares in the excitement of the BPAC and also the greater community with the new greenway that connects from Corregidor to South 3rd Street. And we will see that show up in BPAC programming. It'll show up this fiscal year. The BPAC is planning its annual bike rodeo, which is for children at South Mebane Elementary. The school has been very supportive of that. So we'll do our standard bike rodeo in partnership with the Mebane Police Department, but also be able to offer rides on the greenway with the kids who come. And then we are looking at, as we have been this fiscal year, exploring opportunities for more routine reporting of development activity. And this will assist multiple departments because it will help in the discussions we're having now with budget as every department anticipates new residents and contends with what type of timeline a development is dealing with whenever they're estimating their revenue and different things like that. It brings me to our personnel request, which is for a planning technician. This is for a full-time person, and this person would assist with that routine reporting that I mentioned as a goal. Their primary responsibility would be review of permits. In the current fiscal year, beginning in July through the end of February, the planning department issued 549 zoning permits. This averages to 69 permits per month. That includes fences and sheds. It also and primarily includes single-family homes. So of those 549 zoning permits, 302 represent a new single-family home, that being either a detached or a townhome unit. We currently split single-family home review among 5 different people. That means that builders, applicants are interacting with different people for different projects. They also are experiencing different review timelines. With this full-time person, we can more effectively review permits. Our part-time planner currently focuses on fences and sheds, and his position was approved a couple of years ago, and it has proven how effective it is to have one person focused on permit review. This planning technician would help us get permits out the door. They would improve our timelines. I'm expecting very much by a significant amount. Currently, a review could take 2 to 3 weeks if the planner assigned to your project has a number of site plans or construction plans under review. This person would be devoted to all permit review, so they would be able to get permits probably reviewed within a week. Additionally, as I mentioned, they would have some responsibilities related to reporting. As the holder of all permits, they would know very intimately subdivisions. They would be able to tell you how many lots have been platted, how many permits have been issued, how many COs have been received for a particular subdivision. And that impacts not only the planning department, but many other departments and also the general public. We receive regular phone calls from residents asking, when is this turn lane going to be installed? When is the amenity going to appear in my neighborhood? Often that is tied to approvals and the number of units and COs. So to have that in a clearer way to communicate with folks would help out at a larger scale.
Madam Director, what do you use for a tracking system right now?
We have various modes, and it's primarily a spreadsheet. And so we have approval letters that are issued for each zoning that council approves. That approval letter is reviewed multiple times. It's reviewed when construction plans go through the TRC process, and the engineers are notified of anything that would be required with construction plan approval or the first plat. It's reviewed again when the subdivision plat comes in, and the surveyor and developers notified at that time of when certain improvements are expected, and then it's reviewed with every plot plan that gets submitted. So we have it divided among our staff right now in order to make it more manageable, since our staff have other responsibilities. So they are assigned particular subdivisions. Brianna's responsible for the Meadows, and Mitchell's responsible for North First Street townhomes, so they can know exactly when to expect a certain improvement to be triggered.
So everything's tracked in Excel, essentially, as far as timelines, expectations.
Mhm. Well, we also use like our permitting software. We can put note alerts. So if it is the 50th unit, we would have a note alert that at that CO, there would be no other permits reviewed, that kind of thing.
Profoundly stupid question on my part. Does software like that exist out there to track everything that's happening in a city?
It's not something we can use with our current permitting software. I don't know. I haven't researched enough of other permitting softwares to know if they have that capability or not.
Well, as we grow, this is going to be tremendously important person handling this. So we need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and this person, it of course affects most directly permits and development activity. It also removes certain responsibilities from our full-time planners.
Right.
So that means they have more time to focus on the reviews that are going through technical review, rezoning requests that we're receiving. With a new comp plan, we're bound to go back into the mode of updating our unified development ordinance. So there are a lot of tasks that would be better balanced with another full-time person on staff.
Can Cliff help out? Since he's hit the 400 thing. Anyway, go ahead.
So this is how the new organizational chart would look with a full-time person as a planning technician. In the budget that's been proposed, I have maintained funds for a part-time planner. Those funds have been reduced, and the part-time planner would be used on an as-needed, project-specific basis. And then we still have maintained funds for contracted support. As a retired engineer, Tim Smith does give us a good way to get rid of 2 to-do list items at once, because he can look at it from a planning perspective and an engineering perspective if we have a permit or plat for his review. And I'll end with this, and it's things you already know. This chart shows the number of residential units that have been approved as part of rezoning cases since 2019, the last 5 years. If you total it all up, it's just under 4,000. So essentially, we have 4,000 residential units that have been approved in the last 5 years. This, of course, does not mean that they're immediately on the ground. The peaks you see in 2021 and 2022 include big subdivisions like Oakwood and Hawfield's Landing and North First Street townhomes. And you can see evidence of the progress they've made if you drive by. We're seeing the effects of those approvals now, and we'll see the effects next year when it comes to permit review. And with a single family home, we of course are reviewing a zoning permit for the actual home. When it's released for occupancy and we have a new resident in Mebane, they probably want a fence and maybe a shed and maybe a pool. And we want to look at all that too. I do want to look at a metal carport. So we have zoning rules that need to be followed, and we can do that more effectively with an additional full-time person on staff. Are there any questions?
I would like to point out the numbers that we got on the survey. And I mean, it's just fantastic work, and the plans that you've done and getting them out the door has been phenomenal. More participation from the citizens. So we really appreciate everything that you've done in those areas. And I mean, it's like, and in fact, I call you about rumors. You know, I get more rumor calls than particularly from television stations. You know, yeah, and I tell them no, and they like, we're gonna call somebody else. You know, and but thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to commend you real quick on your high level of communication. There are, in my day job, there are a lot of times where there are questions that come up, and you are always very gracious to respond to random inquiries. And I know that as council members, we see whenever you hear from the general public as well, and you take the time to very graciously and carefully respond to those. So thank you.
As your workload increases, clearly, will we be relying on planning board more often? Really, utilizing them more, maybe empowering them more with the projects, investigations, anything along that line?
That's something that we can explore, be interested in what exactly that would mean. And
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, that's why he wore.
I like the Carolina blue.
Sharp.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go through the information technology budget request. As you can see, the organizational chart that I have here, I'm the IT director, Kirk Montgomery. We have an IT specialist, which is Chad Cross. Just want to give kudos to Chad as well. Chad is actually getting his master's degree. Hopefully he'll be finished up with that in April. We have our contract IT specialist, which is Ray Smith. Ray, I utilize him mostly on special projects dealing with like the fiber upgrades and things of that nature. And then we have our contract IT specialist, which is Justin Marley. And Justin helps mostly with the help desk day-to-day activities. At the current rate we have now, we have actually, I think we had like 1,600 tickets that have been closed within this fiscal year already. And then the other person that I have not mentioned in the past, but I think is very important is Beverly Strickland, who's our laserfish specialist. And so what Beverly does is that she helps create the forms and stuff that we need across the city. She also helped create part of the portal that we're using for inspections, as far as being able to get the plans and drawings and stuff put in place. She's created things as far as like our personal action forms, and we're trying to automate all the processes that we have in house. We scan in majority of our documents, and they're inside the Laserfish application. So she's been a very integral part as far as what we need to get these things done. Highlights of the fiscal year. The fiber connectivity is available at all citywide locations. As you all know, we went through the process with Lumos to get fiber. So we have fiber at every city location, including the parks, and they're active. I think the only place that we do not have it at the present moment is at the new water tower. And I think they're waiting for approval to actually install it at the water tower. This also gives us the ability to, to have cameras and stuff at all these locations and access control systems. The fat pipe appliances that are installed, since we're no longer on what we call a Metro E connection, which is what we were using with Spectrum, we have to have appliances that we put at every location so we can tie all the systems together so that we can have a cohesive network to where we can share information across the city. Also, phase 3 of the access control system is complete. With all the doors and cameras that we have across the city, and as we're expanding, we centralized into one system, but we need to make sure we have redundancy. So we actually have a system set up to where one is here at City Hall and the other one is over at the police station, and we replicate that data in case if one system goes offline, that system will actually be able to pick up and keep the access control systems in place. Um, Currently, we're working on the migration of the Citrix share file to SharePoint. One of the things that I've been trying to do is try to get rid of a lot of redundant systems that we have. Um, with SharePoint, we already have that. It's paid for. We don't have a monthly cost. The Citrix share file is an additional cost, but we can do the exact same thing with the SharePoint implementation. And so we're going to be migrating all the data and stuff that we have over the share file and keep the access and stuff the same. Also, the migration to the enterprise camera system. So I'm trying to cut costs as well because we have, as I say, we have more cameras coming online, but we can utilize our equipment in-house to be able to actually have a centralized system that comes back here to City Hall. That way, all the cameras that we have across the city, we can store that data here, and as we need to, we can actually do searches and share that information. I'm also working with implementing the process to where we have a mobile application that I'm going to be working with the police department on, to where if they're out in the field, they can actually look on their phone and they need to check cameras and so forth. They can actually get the footage and search on the phones. And hopefully I'm expecting that to be completed within the next couple of weeks. And then we're going to have formalized training for the police officers. Um, Also, we work with finance on streamlining the cell phone and landlines to cut excessive costs. Want to give kudos to Daphne for help spearheading that for me. Um, this way, because we have so many different mobile devices, iPads, and things of that nature, that we needed to ensure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. So the company came in and they were able to help us with streamlining. If we had old lines that were no longer being used, they found those lines. If we had data sharing to where instead of paying for unlimited package, we may only need like a 2 or 3 gig package that can be shared across multiple people who may not use as much data as other people. And so that worked out. And so with that being said, I think we saved roughly probably about $40,000 a year from that perspective. And then on the landlines, we had a lot of old, what we call POTS lines or landlines that were out there that were no longer being utilized. And so we were able to clean that up as well. And I'm also working with Verizon on dealing with some of the items as far as like the elevators and so forth, to where we can get rid of all of our landlines and have cellular backups across the board for that. And that saved us roughly about $21,000 a year. Um, Also received funding for the state and local cybersecurity grant program. Currently working on that. A lot of the items that we were purchasing, like the appliances and so forth, I can actually get the monies back from that, and I'm working with the department now to get everything in place to where we can start getting refunded back for some of the stuff that we've already purchased. Also, the cradle points are devices that we use in the police cars that allow for them to have cellular connectivity in the police cars. We are currently working on doing that for the fire department as well, for all their vehicles. A lot of times what we see is that they may have an iPad, it may have a cellular connection on it, but they may lose connectivity. What I'm trying to do is, and I've talked with Verizon and FirstNet about this, is that we will have what's called redundant SIMs, to where if one network goes down, the other one should still be up, and they should still have connectivity when they're out in the field. We'll be doing that for the police department and for the fire department.
Kurt,
Um,
you mentioned fiber at all the parks. We have Wi-Fi routers at all the parks. Is there a network set up?
Yes, sir. Just kind of, so we have, I think we have Wi-Fi at all the parks. Um, and we had a grant originally for like Hope and Youth, but that was from us using an old connection, and so we haven't got the new devices in those locations. It still has Wi-Fi, but we're going to change it over to where it's dedicated to the fiber instead of the plan that we had was that we were actually beaming Wi-Fi from the old rec center over to Youth Walker and then over to Holt, and so that was there. But now we have fiber at those locations, and we're going to switch it over to where it's a dedicated connection.
Do we advertise that we have Wi-Fi available, especially at
We
Community
did.
Park and Mac when there's some big events?
We did when we first did the original, but we have not,
Okay.
since we're still going through the process of getting everything implemented, but that will be broadcast out. Here at City Hall, this was over a weekend. It took us we worked probably about 30 to 40 hours that weekend. So we were prepping to actually get everything put in place here at City Hall for the new fiber connection. So we had to go and take the centralized system here and rewire everything, put in new server racks, rewire everything, and it was a great undertaking. Had help from our MSP from Benchmark and Chad and myself, and this was a great experience, and it was a lot of work. We still have to do that at some of the other locations, but we're gonna plan that out in the future.
Kind of fire protection system you got on it?
So we only have the basic fire system in here because the city hall didn't have a fire system at all, and so I was able to work with Chief Lewis when he was here and with Jamie to get a fire system. We don't have a fire suppression system in there at the moment, but we do have a way to where we can monitor any temperature changes or anything else that's in that closet, which would also be a segue. Since if everything works and we can get the data center, then that will be where all that will be put in place over at the existing inspections department. So goals is to ensure that our free Wi-Fi all city parks. We're 99.9% there at the moment. Then we also need to finalize the upgrades of all of our switches. So at each one of the locations, since we have now upgraded to a 1 gigabit connection at all of our locations, some of our switches are really old, but the cybersecurity grant that I have will help because that's part of upgrades and so forth. So I'll be able to upgrade all the switches that we have at those locations. We're also going to be working with Public Works and the wastewater resource facility on the SCADA system upgrade. I know at some of the pumping stations, we have old devices and stuff that are put out that allow for them to actually ping and get data back. And so we're going to have to upgrade those devices. Also, since we now have fiber at each dedicated site, we do have existing dark fiber. And so we're going to think about the process of what we can do to utilize that more so for an internal SCADA system to where, we can have backup systems over maybe at Public Works or here or things of that nature. So we're thinking about that as well. and then also continue on the cybersecurity upgrades per the grant. Um, we're also looking at, researching the dark fiber for the city. That was one of the stipulations that we had worked out with Lumos when they first came into play, that, they will work with us to get dark fiber so that we have dedicated fiber, not shared fiber, just for the city itself. I know they're still working on quite a few things dealing with the rural areas and so forth. So we're going to revisit that whenever, probably at the beginning of the next fiscal year. Uh, Also, one of the things that we also need to do is that we have our badges, and so these are lower encryption. And so I won't go into all detail because I don't want to publicize too much, but we just need to get a higher encryption capability on these cards so that we are more secure with us expanding throughout the city. And then also increase cameras across the cities at the parks and other locations. One of the things that, that some citizens, and I know Councilwoman Burkholder, you had talked to me as well, is that, with the social districts and things of that nature that we have happening now, that we need to ensure that we have camera visibility for the police department. And so we're looking into that to see what we can do to get, some cameras and Wi-Fi also in those areas as well. So my request for the is a reclassification for the IT specialist position that I have now to a network services manager. So what has occurred is that now Chad is more focused more so on the network side, since we have a lot of different devices and things that we have installed in-house. We have to manage those devices. Also, we have to think about, the cradle point systems that we have that are in the cars. And so having a person who can help facilitate and manage that across the board would be a great plus, because we need to have someone who's dedicated and focused mostly on that, because that's a critical point with our cybersecurity side of things as well. He will also be working and managing the MSP that we have that's working with us as far as our firewalls and things of that nature, so that we can ensure that we're fully covered. Um, you know, the cost that you can see, this includes a COLA and associated onboarding cost for fiscal year 25-26, and also a merit and COLA for 26-27. Before I go any further, any questions on that?
Just wanted to confirm, so Chad is the one that's working on wrapping up his master's degree,
Yes.
and he's the one that you're thinking about for this network
Yeah,
service.
this is just reclassifying his position now.
Okay, thanks.
And also, looking at the next fiscal year is actually have another IT specialist. I know we have contract personnel at the moment, but one of the things is that we actually need an in-house person. The reasoning behind that is that if we have anything that we have to do above and beyond, we're looking at $250 to $300 an hour to be able to do that. And so, having someone who's in-house, who, even with overtime, it would never equate to that much money. But it's we're growing, the city's growing, and we need to ensure that we can keep the IT infrastructure up and going. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking at for the next fiscal year.
I was going to bring this up at the end, and I'm hoping you can explain as best you can without giving out too many of the secrets or whatever's happening behind our walls. Most departments we want to see in the news here at the city of Mebane. I don't see the IT department in the news at all, and I am grateful for that. And what will the IT specialists be able to help out with behind the scenes to make sure that as technology grows, as AI grows, to help keep us out of the news?
As you know, we currently have a lot of things in place to protect us from ransomware and things like that. But I would like to have an individual who comes in to where I can actually have them trained in cybersecurity to actually help facilitate that as well. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking at in the future, is because we need that. You know, things are growing, things are changing, and the infrastructure has to keep up with it. We are working closely with our managed, and I keep saying MSP, but our managed service providers, which is Comtech and Benchmark, to allow for us to make sure that we're covered and we have things in place that will prevent us from being hacked. And that's work, but we need someone who can be dedicated to help push that as well.
That'll be their focus.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir. The capital request is that the City Hall front copier, I think, is roughly about 10 to 12 years old. I looked at, we talked about this previous with leasing and so forth, but the return on investment is cheaper for us just to purchase it because, 5 years is normally what a lease is, and we'll pay a lot more for that lease compared to us just purchasing it and having a maintenance contract on it. So do have some increases with professional services, dealing with, GIS increase and having additional hours with us trying to implement like the forms and stuff for Laserfish. Not a significant cost, but it is higher. Technology services and supplies, we had, that's pretty much just going with the rate of things increasing. Technology licensing, we had a couple of new software applications. I know we had the budget software application that came in, and that was part of that. But also we are finally looking at, I want to thank Mary for really helping me out with this because we were able to go and look at every department and pull all the different software packages in. And so now we should have all the packages across the city in the technology licenses and the software licenses and maintenance. And my goal is to look at all the software that we have and see, as I stated before, any redundancy, see if there's software that can be utilized across multiple departments, if it, and things like that. But it's going to be, a push to try to get everything put in place. But technology licenses and stuff are going up, but we are getting a handhold on all of this. Questions?
Thank you, Mary, for getting all the software together. And just so I make sure I heard this right, so whatever department is using software, upgrading software, increases with software, you guys, the IT department, is the focal point for the cost increases.
Yes, sir.
We're
Yep.
working with all departments to be
To
that.
pull that in, yes.
Thank you, sir.
And one of the things too is that we want to make sure that any new software that's being purchased, that it comes through the IT department to make sure that we vet that and that it meets the needs.
How much input do you get from the departments when you decide that you want to combine some software and change them?
Well, before I do anything, I will talk to department heads just to kind of see, what software, what their needs are. I'm, not taking, we don't take a hard hammer and say, now this is what we're going to do. We want to make sure that it meets the needs. And if it does not meet the need, then there's no justification for us to try to change it.
Well, I know the last government agency I worked for, every time we got something that worked, they changed it. So I just want to make sure you're touching base with our department heads before you make changes to operational stuff.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right. Let's take about a 15-minute break.
Hi, friend. I have a question for you.
And so we were delaying some of the tests and stuff until December of this year, hoping that the books and stuff would be ready. It's no guarantee. Yeah.
That's why I decided.
So just tell them no.
I'll be glad to do it first.
I'll let them know. Yeah.
It's not, perfect.
At that point,
Unless you wanna keep them happy for some reason.
I mean, no, because we've given them multiple days and you're available, and he's canceled on us like 3 times in a row, and at this point, we're done trying to talk, you know, like, it is.
Channel 12 called me and an update on the budget. So I explained to them that they had not reached an agreement, and we had heard nothing. And then, she said, okay, well, how long will it take once they start? I said, probably 18 months. And I said, when we look at that, they say they're starting to fall. I mean, some of them, you see what I'm seven. And, she wrote something.
I just decided, well, you know what, it was getting crazy. And
Groundbreaking.
Wow.
I was just like, all right, I'm not going,
Yeah, that'll be.
Right.
Yeah.
let's say it is 62 months.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you tried. But all right, I'll let them know. Thank you. You're fine.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Almost 20,000 square feet.
Bother you during the break.
No. Kelly, I got a chance to listen to the podcast on Call 911. I thought it was really good.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So I'm behind. Obviously.
No, you're good.
But,
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, which one?
Yeah. So that one went really well. Great recording. I thought all the comments were really good. So I thought that went well. And I got to listen. I told Richard I was in the car, so I got to listen to about half of y'all on Maverick.
Oh, good. Okay.
I didn't listen to the whole thing.
That's okay. It goes for a while.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to tell him. I said, whatever the time limit is in Capitol Hill, the Hill is fine.
Yeah, it's 10, 11
Yeah.
minutes. That's it. You're done.
I said the Maverick may very well be, they give you 30 minutes.
Yes. Yes, very much so. How did it sound?
It was good. It was
Okay.
good. I always remember when I asked you about living quality of life. I
Yeah.
did listen to that part, and he's like, what do you think it's short? I was like, just say quality of life, but you said it in another way.
Mhm.
Chuck, and he said he was freelance, not freelance.
Oh, free ball. Yeah, he went off script, which is fine. You can do that. But
It wasn't a gotcha question.
No,
And you
he
did
was
so
like,
well.
how do you guys work? Yeah, I was like, here we go.
Yeah. You always got quality of life. Is that what you gave?
That's true. I would honestly set my mind. I slipped in positively.
Yeah, so I listened to that. This was getting to talk before.
Yeah, and then, I just recorded.
Okay. Okay.
And it's talking about.
I got you.
Yeah.
How he gets out of the info.
Getting out info and then how you might want to know the influence.
Yeah, this is all good.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll go out next week. Okay.
I will say, like, it never on the mic one, about call 911.
Mhm.
That might be where, as long as it doesn't mess up your normal stuff, reposting on social media, to say, hey, do you want to understand better?
Listening to the
about call
podcast?
911? Yeah.
Okay, I'll reverse.
I wouldn't wear it too closely when you're posting a monthly one, but, you know, if you want to add that.
Okay.
Some of those ones, it doesn't hurt like that one.
To re-advertise it.
Yeah, re-advertise on social media several times.
Okay, and since Katie brought it up, I'll be re-sharing the permits and portals video.
You can.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about it.
You jumped to it before I did. I was like, oh, there's a video of Bear Hooks is on the call. And you were like, there's a video. And I was like, yes.
I don't think that was what she was asking.
Yeah.
But it never hurts to re-share. They don't.
Okay.
They don't use any social media.
Okay.
So I appreciate that.
Sounds good.
I thought you were up there, giving bad square footage.
This is 6128.
So Friends has a different number, and I had it, and I was like, I'm just not gonna look it up.
What, do you know where it came from? Cause
He got it from the plans when they renovated it, but he's gonna double check the numbers at this point. I told him at this point, I said, let's not discuss anyone's square footage. But, you know, I will say this, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's texting, if Rich doesn't ask you this. You know, this is me, maybe I'm wrong. They don't need offices in the station, they need to be out. They, you know, y'all aren't the fire department, they don't respond from the station, so that might be, if you ever get a chance to mention that again, you know. But you got the stuff in there with it. And then Richard didn't want to talk about it. So I tried to-
My challenge going through this year, and I'll keep it.
Yeah.
Careful is how I work.
I know.
And I hope that was.
Yeah, yeah. I think at this point, it got in there, they've heard it. I mean, they're not gonna lose that one tax increase, do it all. It's gonna be done. The delta here is, it's gonna have to be spread out.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know when it'll be though.
I just, like I said, I want to keep it
But
out. I'm the.
I wouldn't let there be confusion on, you need more space because you want more officers.
Yeah.
Because officers, I've always said, and you may disagree, the car is their office.
Yeah.
We'd rather them
No, we want them out.
sit in the food line parking lot and do their paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I thought it went well.
But I thought that building was bigger, and so did he, but see, I.
Let's see what it does.
Having pulled it, then, yeah.
Let's see when it comes back. At
Yeah.
this point, I don't want to give wrong numbers. I won't go bring it up, and then got the question, and I said, all right, well, I gotta tell them I'm not
All right. Franz, before you get started, Councilman, what?
Yes, I'm gonna need to head out at 3:30 to the airport, so if I have to slip out and presentations are still going on, I just want to apologize to those department heads. But I will be reviewing these slides, and I just wanted you to know that these presentations are very important, and I'm sorry that if I have to slip away.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Hooks and council members. The engineering department. So on this slide, you see the organizational chart. Got a big group of surveyors, architects, engineers, plan reviewers, and inspectors who help look after Mebane's needs. These are the folks that, with their specific tasks that they do below, and as follows. This photo represents folks who work on Mebane stuff daily. They include Clay Phillips with wastewater modeling and pump stations, Brent Mills, who keeps up with our water and sewer availability, processing water and sewer permit applications. Mark, you know, because he comes to council meetings every year and goes over the street list and bids related to that. Mark will be retiring soon. He is going to see us through the Clay Street project, which is very important to us and the city. And he will stay on as a consultant, but he's building a house down at the coast to be with his grandkids and kids. And most of the folks that do retire from us, they stay on as a consultant, and we use their knowledge and input where we need it. Trenton Norvelli, who has been working with Mark over the last 4 years on not only Mebane's projects, but others, street projects, resurfacing, patching. He looked after the Woodlawn entrance parking lot over at the community park, the Greenway, and the Lebanon Trail connector. So Trenton's very versed in this and will be a good asset for the city. Of course, I'll kind of look after all matters, whatever they may be. And Josh is all things stormwater management. Ryan is my right hand out in the field. He's standing beside Josh. And John Pendergraph has been active in the AIA grants that we received and in general grant application as we make them on behalf of the city. Highlights over the past year include departmental support when we went after some grant funding related to the 3rd Street, 5th Street I&I project. We worked closely with Kyle on that. The GE pump station in Forest, Maine, that was congressional district fund directive spending, and met with our federal folks, senator and Congress lady, on this project. And we worked closely with Preston on applying for that grant. Both of those appear to be headed in the right direction and actually receiving funding. Other departmental assistance, we worked with Public Works over the past year in planning their facilities. You saw a presentation last week on that. We continue to work with Kyle on utility projects that are in the annual budget and there are in the capital improvement plan, which you adopt yearly. The wharf expansion project's been underway, so we've been working with John on that to make sure that goes smoothly. And with Aaron regarding the Michael Dam spillway replacement project. We were pleased to present the long-range utility plan to council. I believe that was last July, so it counted in my year. And it sits on the city's website for anybody to review. The annual street resurfacing paction, we did 2.26 miles. Completed the Mebane Greenway. Completed the Lebanon Trail Connector, the parking lot at the community park. The other items are related to private development, and that's residential and non-residential. You see the miles of streets and water and sewer and storm drains and new sidewalks throughout Mebane. And the bottom part is related to stormwater engineering and permitting, the inspections that go on for the stormwater control measures annually, the stream determinations that we're responsible for, and the annual stormwater report that's submitted to the state.
I would just mention that many years ago, one of the biggest issues we had ongoing for a number of years was the flood issues equated to storm drains and culverts, and some of them are, some of them DOTs, but it's nice to, that's I mean, hats off to the engineers, Darrell Russell and you and your staff, that we don't have to deal with that anymore. I remember that used to be just a everyday thing. Someone's house was flooded, Third Street, Fifth Street.
You're right.
you name it.
Existing infrastructure, some of that has been replaced. Mostly what we try to do as we review plans that come before y'all monthly on new projects is to make sure that the folks that are moving into these areas are not going to have problems that folks today may have problems.
Well, it's a dull subject, storm water runoff, but it's a big issue when it starts creating a mess. I'll tell you that.
I believe when we were looking back at the number of ponds when we started the post-construction runoff ordinance in 2007, it was Ashbury. Well, we have several hundred now that we look after, and or report or have some involvement with an HOA or an industry or a particular resident that lives nearby. And so hats off to y'all for providing that support, and we continue to carry that out.
Is the best way, like I had a resident reach out and say, hey, I've got some concerns about my stormwater runoff. I seem to remember you saying in the past, like take videos during the storms.
Yes.
Is that still kind of the best thing to do?
It does. It shows the magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
It shows, sometimes it will, and then we do an investigation. Public Works and public utilities will go out and make sure a culvert is not blinded over. They typically do that ahead of any major storm events.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job of that.
Just to make sure those items are free and clear. But yes, videos show magnitude impacts. Sometimes those photos come through the mayor so they've sent to him or to any of y'all. So, and that's fine. That's great. Goals. Final months of FY25. I've mentioned the Clay Street project. That's the start in April. Hopefully it'll be completed in April. It may be in May. It just depends on the weather. A lot of that is nighttime work.
Thank you for the level of communication that your department has been offering on that, by the way, with that project.
With help from others here at City Hall. The GKN reroute project, I think we're finally getting closer to realize that. That's going to move 160,000 gallons a day from our wharf over to the Graham wastewater treatment plant, provide some relief, and we'll be able to serve some projects, including the Corey project that you approved back in November or December. That is dependent on Buc-ee's when they build the outfall. As a part of their project, they were adding so much fill that we couldn't install the outfall that goes under Trollingwood Hallfields Road. And they agreed to put that in. It's a 12-inch line. They'll get to the other side of the road at Pilot's store. It'll make the project simpler. It's just we're having to wait on them. So the project is dependent on them getting that outfall done. Once they get it permitted and approved, then we'll feel better about going out to bid on the project. Other things that we do provide departmental support where and when needed. Just doesn't include the folks that I listed earlier. You know, I work with management closely. I work with Ashley closely at planning, building inspections. From time to time, the fire department, time to time, the police department, IT, everybody. Don't leave anybody out. FY25 revenue, we show what we've collected to date. That was was that January? Is that where we cut it off? The other anticipated fees, I don't know if some of those have come in or not. We are waiting on a couple of big projects. They've had their plans approved. They haven't paid the fees. They've had their plans are approvable. They haven't paid the fees. When they pay the fees, we stamp the plans approved. And you see the totals there. Again, I will say that for multi-phase projects, they're paying all their fees up front. And so that when you look at $835,000, yes, that's a lot of money in one particular year, but sometimes it's, you know, several phases of a project, and that's what they're choosing. They don't have to submit the whole project at one time. It's what they've chosen to do. You see, again, on the FY26 projections, I know we talk about 400 lots or 500 lots, but we anticipate we'll be reviewing and approving about 749 lots. That doesn't mean they all are built in that particular year, but it relates to the fees that are collected.
I'll just add to that, that reflects probably projects that were 3 to 4 or 5 years ago that are coming. So that number may seem like a large number, but we typically say a project after it gets approval may take 2 to 3 or even 4 years before it comes up. So some of this is projects that predate our previously referenced wastewater capacity policy. So
yes, thank you, Preston. Proposed fee changes. Start with the first one. We spent a lot of time on streets. Folks now, they used to not work through the winter time on streets. They do now. They work when they feel like they can, and it's a lot of proof rolling, re-proof rolling after freeze and thaw, after rain. But we want to be there to continue to try to move these projects along. So we're talking about requesting an addition of $1 a foot there. Private storm drain lines, we charge for a fee for private storm sewer lines in residential areas because we need to make sure that they are working properly before a home is built and somebody moves in and there's a problem. Doesn't always avoid it, but that's what we do. So the change here is for non-residential, whether it's commercial, institutional, educational, industrial, that any line that takes water from one property into another, that we need to make sure that part of that system works. So we're not backing up water on somebody's property and that it has a continuous flow through the site, through the pond and outletting. So we're requesting adding that to our storm sewer line fee of $1. All the other parts and pieces that are serve an industrial commercial site, we're not asking for a fee for that. Just what, for instance, the Corey site goes through the Duke Hospital site before it hits the street. And we need to make sure that outfall, storm sewer outfall, has been inspected. We're asking for a flood study and climate review fee. We probably review one or both annually, and it's really just not, it's not covered in the, we do it, but it's not covered in terms of our revenue or the actual time that we have to spend doing that. Additionally, with a residential development stormwater management fee, $25 a lot. We do charge, the city does charge $25 a lot as a review when the project first comes in through zoning and whatnot. This is more of a back end item because we spent a lot of time out there on individual lots that weren't built to the requirements of the plans. And then we try to figure out how best to address that so that building construction can start. Same thing with commercial, office, institutional, and industrial, and it's based on the per square foot. Same way the preliminary fee is based on the per square foot of those items. Hopefully that'll bring an annual impact of $45,000 additional revenue to the city to help cover the budget request. We are looking at a hopeful increase of $21,000 on the general engineering. Most of that, finance can tell you that most of that is due to what we've shifted monies to the stormwater management aspect of what the city does. Utility, that's $10,000 request, and that's spread out over the entire different things that we do for utility engineering. I have added a couple of project photos that are exciting to see these projects being completed, and we were certainly happy to work on them with the city to get those done.
Are your budget request increases covered by your fee increases?
Well, we didn't ask for a utility fee increase, but it typically handles what is needed for that department. We fall short on the general engineering, and that's why it's a larger request. Other questions?
So, just a general question for Richard or Preston. So do we try to balance the, kind of like we do with inspections, we try to balance the fees and engineering cost? I mean, I know there's some work that the engineering firm does that is strictly for the city, like laying out a park or something like that, but we try to set the rate so that the cost for engineering break even.
I can't say it is 100%, but we do look at that. That's one of the reasons why this year city engineer brought these new rates that you saw were previously zero. Some of this is driven, I guess it is a balancing act, just like well, I won't say the others balancing act, that's a general statute, but as new requirements come down from the federal and state level, we find that we're having to do additional work. So that's why he brought new fees this year. But also we get feedback from state officials and legal municipalities, different things about, you know, they don't want to see fees constitute a significant portion of constructing a home as well too. But we do try to achieve that balance. That I cannot say it is 100%, but we are looking at that every year closer and closer now. So.
Well, I mean, I think it's overly fair that if you're looking at a development, that development, the engineering cost for the cities goes back to the developer. He can apply it to the homes if he wants to. It's not fair for citizens already. It's just like everything else to pay for engineering costs on the new development.
So understanding, friends, you may not have an answer today if you're at 100%, but you do feel we're getting closer.
Well,
and
so
closer.
we do things beyond private development for the city. So what we're hoping, or our goal is to at least collect 80%. 80% of the budgets are at least collected with engineering fees. So I think last year, I think Daphne pointed out, fell short of that in collections. And that's about when these projects come through and they're ready to pay those fees. So you'll see a year that fees come in and they may be more than the budget. But again, they came in because they weren't paid last year. They came in because they cover multiple phases. So I think when you look at it on whole, we're between that 80% and 100% most years.
This may be a question more for Mr. White and Mr. Mitchell. Is, I guess, a little bit of a Debbie Downer one, but with our requests for external funding from maybe federal or state sources, are we anticipating like Western North Carolina relief efforts to maybe not help us in those endeavors?
Yeah, one thing I've seen is that it might, in terms of any bidding construction projects we may bid out, we're going to be probably in greater competition and might see higher prices because of that, because of the work being done in Western North Carolina. But friends and Preston may know more. But
I think one thing you're asking specifically is the chances of getting an appropriation from the General Assembly this year are probably not as high a percentage or as good a chance as previous years, because I think the focus is going to be on Western North Carolina. At the federal level, it's referenced in Mr. Holt's presentation about we work with Congresswoman Foshee and also Senator Tillis. Those kinds of things are dependent. I don't want to use the wrong phrase or wrong word here, but when the federal budget was just extended a few months, that was a continuation of the previous budget year, not the new one. So our funding was not included in that. So that funding, that $4.2 million, we will not receive that funding until a new fiscal year budget's done. If that new budget is not done in the budget year we submitted, we obviously have the opportunity to resubmit, but we would not be funded then.
So, okay,
There's
so
several factors.
they're debating right now on a continuing resolution on the federal level, or finding an approval for an actual spending bill for this year. So that's where we could see, I don't want to say a loss of that income, but just we may not actually get it.
If it's a continuation of the previous fiscal year, our GE pump station and force main project would not be part of it. If it is a budget for the new federal government fiscal year, which starts September versus our July, it would be in it. So
Are we prepared for that? I mean, that's a big chunk of money.
we had submitted for projects that were in the future of the CIP.
Okay.
So it is not something that's going to be in next fiscal year budget. By seeking outside funding sources, we're usually pursuing items that we can remove from the CIP, the utility fund CIP. And of course, it was mentioned in the last meeting, the CIP future years are very fluid, but these are projects we know in, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years we need to do. But no, it would not, receiving that funding will not impact, we do not believe will impact our budget next year. But obviously, it'd be great to get it because it removes something from our CIP in a future year. So.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Okay. All right, so I'm Beatrice Hunter. I am the Director of Human Resources and Risk Management. And you can see the team here. This is Emily Smith. She is our HR consultant. And Megan Gilligan, she is our part-time Human Resources Assistant. So some highlights of some things that we have done and are doing. HR assisted you. You did the heavy lift in hiring our newest key personnel, which will be our city manager. So he was hired this year. We onboarded 35 employees this year to date. Certainly, we have to go to July. We have enhanced our new hire onboarding processing, and some of that credit I give to Kirk in the IT department. We're really trying to automate a lot of services. We want things to be easier for employees, and so when we have prospective employees, we want to give them paperwork that they can complete anywhere, and that for us, we receive and it automatically files to their employee record. So there's reduces, increases efficiencies for them as for us, because they can just fill the form right out. They don't have to download forms and then type them or write them and then upload them and send them back. So it's efficient for them. So
If I could chime in on that and say this was the easiest onboarding process I've ever gone through in terms of automation she speaks of. It was very well done. So I commend the HR staff for what they've done with that process.
thank you so much. So we have also reduced turnover by 11%. And this has been over a period of time. So our highest turnover in the past 5 years since we have been in the COVID pandemic in 2020, our highest year of turnover was in 2023, I'm sorry, fiscal year 22 to 23, where we had 16% turnover, and now we have reduced that down. It has increased just a touch since I created this slide deck, but we're at 7% right now for our turnover. So I think that that speaks a lot to the staff and the department heads and what they're doing with their teams. I think some of the things that we're doing on the HR side is helpful as well, but it's very exciting that that turnover is getting down and people really want to work in our positively charming city. So that's great.
Have we identified those positive items that are keeping folks here?
Can I identify the?
I don't want to dig too deep into it, but have we identified the positives that keep people here in Mebane?
So I think that's, we're looking at that, but I think a lot of it has to do with our department heads and some of the teams that they have established. We did kind of see some culling, if you will, for some departments. But we have had some departments who have had no turnover. I mean, in fact, the police chief mentioned today, he has had one person turn over, but that was last month. And there are some people who have not had any turnover, or if they have had turnover, it's been a happy one, like retirements. Like in the finance department, they have a person who's going to retire this month at the end of the month. And in Public Works, I have someone retiring. We had somebody retire in the fire department in February. So, but I think it's a lot of teamwork that's happening there. And I think for us, kind of doing a lot on the front end, because I would say, for example, in Public Works, we had people that their application didn't match up to who presented, and I think just kind of making sure that the most best qualified people that we can get on the front end, and we're vetting them very well on the front end. I think automation in terms of, before we had a paper application, and since I've been here, we have implemented an online application. We actually have a Cornerstone is our applicant tracking system that you all funded for us, where people can go in and apply for jobs. We've seen an uptick in more qualified candidates and more candidates in general as a result, because I think if any of you apply for a job, you really don't want to write it out and then bring it to City Hall. And that's what was happening before. And so we did automate that process. So I think that has helped too. So I think there's several factors that have helped us. And as I'll go more in my presentation, I'm more excited about retaining staff. I think that's the next step for us. We have leveraged internships to increase organizational productivity. So Mebane hasn't historically, I don't think, used a lot of interns, but we have partnered with Elon University, and it's been very exciting, where we have good outcomes with the HR team as well as the Public Information Office. So HR had two part-time interns last summer. And then one of them stayed on. She became part-time for us that we funded. This partnership with Elon, Elon pays for the interns. So we get kind of free labor for the summer to kind of test folks out. So HR took advantage of that opportunity. And we had Emily be part-time. And then when we had a vacancy this year in human resources, Emily became our full-time HR analyst, which has been very helpful. So she kind of already knew about some of the things that we're doing here in Mebane. And so it was a great transition. So I think that's a great testament to the program and kind of what we're doing here, that her very first job out of college, because she just graduated in January, that she would want to come to Mebane and work. And she's been really excited about being here and meeting the team here at City Hall and the city. So that's been good. As well, in the public information office, Kelly had a part-time, campus Alamance intern as well. And now that person is part-time, who is Emma, and she has done a great job for us, working with us and getting more posts out and other things that Kelly needs. So we think that's been really good. IT is looking to hire somebody out of that program. And we have also talked to Franz about potentially doing that. So folks have done a good job, and we've leveraged that in the organization. So as you know, you all fund for us to have a 1/3 study each year to evaluate the jobs of our employees. And so this year we're embarking on a comp study for police, fire, and recreation and parks. And you'll hear about that more next month when the comp analyst presents, compensation consultant presents to you next month. And then it's a good thing that we're doing to kind of stay ahead of trends in the marketplace, making sure that we're paying our people equitably and appropriately. So I think that's very helpful. Some engagement opportunities for staff that we do annually. We will be publicizing soon in May to happen our employee health and wellness fair and biometric screenings that we allow for people to kind of see their numbers and manage their health, as well as some financial webinars. Also, you all may be aware that some of our staff bank with local government federal credit union, and that's going to become civic credit union, and there may be some changes for employees, so we're going to have them come and speak to staff, as well as retirement webinar and employee appreciation day, which is also in March. Speaking to the wellness of our organization, people have done a really good job of keeping themselves healthy, and we were able to negotiate a 0% increase for our medical insurance. So that was really good. We're going to soon meet with our team to see what our benefits look like in general, but we've been able to have a really good coverage rate for that, where it's been not as expensive as it could be. We also have implemented our OSHA consultative visits, and so that has helped us to promote a safer workforce, which decreases our liability and potential fines. So we've saved tens of thousands of dollars by doing this. They've done almost 3 departments. We have 3 left that will happen in the next couple months, just to make sure that we are being compliant, make sure that we're a safer workplace. We're doing a really good job. They hardly find a lot of things, but the things that they do find, we do fix, and it's better for the employees and a cost savings for us. And then we also have implemented, we're working on the full implementation for staff to do it, but we have listened to staff. Some staff, in terms of training, they can do some of these things from their desk. And so we, through our insurance provider, our carrier for property and liability insurance, we're able to offer some things online. So we are able to leverage our in-person contract better, because those are things that they won't have to focus on, and we can focus on more and other things for on hands-on training. So we have 3 main goals for this FY 25-26, and that is to increase our efficiencies and records management through technology. I think, kind of as Kirk mentioned, we're looking to automate all of our forms. We're using Laserfish as our repository, and so we have multiple forms and things that we want to use to leverage those efficiencies, so that we can have people who need to see them. It can be routed through the proper channels for approvals with signatures, and nobody has to touch a piece of paper, and then it goes right to the employee's repository. So we are working on that too. As I mentioned, we are looking better in terms of our numbers for staff and getting our turnover down. We still have some work to do. As I mentioned, we're at 7% right now. And due to some retirements, we'll be at 9% through the end of April. So we do want to get that number back down, back to our, 2020 rate of 6%. So we do want to get that down. And we also want to work on retention. I mean, I think we have a lot of very good staff and employees here, and we certainly want to retain them. We are soon, and we also need to prepare for the wave of retirements that will happen, because I've run the numbers, we do have some people who are eligible. We want them to stay, but we do have some people that are eligible. And so, we got to have people to go in their place. And so we do want to make sure that we're developing our team. And then finally, we're going to work on the personnel policy manual. We do think that we may get some outside with PTRC to help us with that, but it's still going to be a heavy lift. It'll be a heavy lift in the HR department, as well as collaboration with department heads, because all of us need to read the personnel policy and really look to see, with our culture, what does that look like and what changes do we need to make? And so we want to make sure everybody's on the same page, and we all will have to collaborate in that effort. Okay, so we are requesting a position this year. We're requesting a human resources analyst to join our team. Right now, we're operating below industry standards. Industry standards are between 1.7 to 4.5 employees per 100 people. We have 284 staff members. We're trying to do some projects. We have some software implementations to complete, and those things take time. And so, I think that helps us also with our service level for staff, as well as the time it takes for us to implement all these things. Traditionally, we've had the previous consultant did recruitment, and obviously, as you can hear from the numbers, just to go through those, in the fiscal year 20 to 21, we onboarded 29 people. Following year, it was 54 people. Then it was 61 people, 55 people, and now we're at 35 people. And then accordingly, with our turnover is 6%, 6%, 16%, 10%, and now we're at 7 going to 9%. So we really need some more people in the department to help us with these efforts of different things that we're trying to accomplish, mainly with our staff. That's the biggest thing, but also to participate in all the functional areas of human resources, which include talent management, compensation and benefits, training and development, worker safety and risk management, employee engagement, employee relations, performance management, HR analytics. And again, we've had one person dedicated to recruitment and the other person dedicated to all the other things, and that is not manageable. So, so we do want to request that position. So this is what that would look like. We would have 2 analysts, and we do currently have part-time dollars as well for that. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be presenting along with my colleagues, the administration, budget department. You will see in the and council, you'll see in the organization chart, you'll see our org chart, and you'll see the employees that compose the administration department. Of course, city manager and city attorney as hired by city council. You'll see the city clerk and myself, the assistant city manager. You'll also see the public information officer, and then the part-time employee that was referenced in the previous presentation. For our highlights for fiscal year 24-25, the first 3 relate to the retirement and hiring of the new city manager. The next 3 are relate to the 3 large capital projects that have been and remain a focus of the city as we're undertaking those projects. Obviously, I will say if there's any questions, I can answer them, but a lot of this has been well discussed with council, so I'll try to be brief. The next 2 relate to making financial feasible plans, such as the work that's been done on the general fund CIP, and then, of course, the work on our large projects and also our utility fund CIP. And then the final 2 at the end of these highlights, they are becoming a standard for the administration department, industrial recruitment and expansion. And then, of course, it's been referenced with questions earlier about where we are working on long-range planning for infrastructure replacement, growth, but also outside funding opportunities. Our goals for fiscal year 25-26 is, from the last bullet point to the first one, continue planning and seeking for outside funding for infrastructure projects. We will continue our industrial recruitment expansion. We've had several industrial projects that have not required incentives. That does not mean future ones will not require incentives, but we do seem to have a lot of activity. The city is very successful with expansion of existing industries, so that is a positive for us. Number 3, we continue to incorporate feedback from the February 25 budget work session in both this coming year, fiscal year budget, but also future ones. The city clerk continues to work towards achieving the Master Municipal Clerk certification from the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. Next item is we will have a goal of beginning implementation of agenda management software. It'll be approximately 26 weeks. On the next slide, our city clerk will present more in-depth information on that for you. We also continue working on and advertising and attracting visitors, in this case specifically heads in beds, to Mebane in an effort to aid our new municipal occupancy tax. And then finally, in our PIO area, improve the city's social media following via reels, videos, and pictures, and many, many more items. At this point, I will defer to our city clerk on the next slide.
Thank you, Preston. And thank you, Mayor and council members, for providing me the opportunity to present my budget request for the upcoming fiscal year. This is my first formal budget request for clerk-related items, and it stems from the continued growth that our city is experiencing and the increasing demands on my department. Despite being a department of one, I am still committed to maintaining high standards of efficiency, transparency, and support for our city's operations. To better serve the community and ensure my office can operate more effectively and efficiently, I am proposing 2 key additions to this year's budget. The first one being the implementation of the peak agenda management software. Implementing this software will streamline our agenda creation process and improve workflow efficiencies. The way that we create our packets now is a manual process and through Adobe, and it is just outdated. And with the growing complexity in our agenda packets and increasing preparation time and workload. So being able to streamline that process would be more efficient for me, for you guys, for the public. And so I think it would be very beneficial. As you can see on the slide, there would be a one-time cost of $5,000, and that would include the setup, the configuration, and training time. Like I said, that is a one-time fee, and then the software license would be $8,800, and that would be an annual cost. That would be, if we saw that this worked well for us, there is unlimited users there. So that could span into if Ashley wanted to use it for planning board, for REACT, for RPAC, for all of our boards. So they would all be able to use the same software, and it would all just look more consistent throughout the city if we find that it works well for us, for the council. Then the other item that I am proposing is contracted a minutes transcription service. The increasing length of our meetings and other priorities in my office, sometimes it doesn't prove to be efficient for me to sit there and write the minutes. I have come to find out that a lot of other municipalities are now using contracted services, some even using AI services to draft their minutes now. And there's a retired clerk from Wake County who does this part-time that has come highly recommended. So we have a sample contract from her that we could look at. And if we wanted to just do this for a year and see how it works, we could just do a yearly contract, but it would greatly help me. We have seen a large increase in public records requests over the last bit, and that it takes a lot of staff time. And we may actually be in the future, not now, but looking at some software that could help us with that as well. Because we want to make sure that we get that information to the citizens in a timely manner. But yeah, so I am proposing a $6,000 cost, an up to, but not exceeding $6,000 annually for that. So we're looking at just under $20,000 for the request that I think would be very beneficial, especially for my office, but also for you all and also for our citizens. Thank you.
And I will point out, and the city clerk can correct me on this, I don't know that the process that city council receives with the agenda packets will change that greatly. This will be more for efficiency on it being prepared for you. So
That's true. I was supposed to cover that. I believe it may change the way it looks just a little bit, but you would still be able to access it easily. And instead of using iAnnotate, there's an iLegislate app that you can use that if you wanted to make notes and things like that, you would still be able to do that. And I also wanted to say that there are some other North Carolina current users of the Peak Agenda Management Program that include Elon, Oak Island, Wake Forest, Reedsville, Morrisville, Fuquay Varina, Morrisville, Concord. So there are several cities that are already using this, and a couple of them I've spoken to, and they do recommend it.
we do understand in the administration department, we have a unique working relationship in working with both the city council, but also our other departments that we interact with. So we have used this chart for another number of years. We do understand that is a unique and a great honor to serve in this department. So we include this every year. And of course, Mr. Mayor, I don't think we're the last department this year, but we did try to be judicious with your time and go quickly through. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
You succeeded. Questions? Finance, how are we gonna pay for this?
Good afternoon. I think I'm going to be even faster than administration. So, let's see. So this is my department. Currently, Jan, who is going to be retiring at the end of this month, is not on here because I wanted it to reflect my department as of how it would be next fiscal year. But Jan has been our utility billing specialist for a few years, and she started in working the front desk. So she's been promoted since she came here. She's been here, I think, about 5 years or so, but she's going to be retiring. And her position was reclassed to an accounting supervisor, budget and utility billing position that Mary was hired for, so she could cross-train with Jan on the utility billing part. So the position was changed and duties were added. But that's why Jan is not on here, but she will be retiring in a few weeks. I'll carry on here.
Are they like angel wings behind you?
I never thought of it that way, but no, it's not, but it would be neat if it was.
Probably appropriate, but that does look like it.
Great. So the highlights so far this year, we were rated. We went through a bond rating this past summer in preparation for the wharf expansion revenue bonds, and so that was successful. And when we were rated as AA- and AA3. Also closed on the Lake Michael Spillway project, closed on the wharf expansion revenue bonds. We received 2 awards from the Government Finance Officers Association. The first one was the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 23, and the other one was for Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting for fiscal year 23. We have applied for these awards for fiscal year 24, and over the next 6 months, we should find out about that. We had a clean audit, and We also processed last year, I should have put last fiscal year for this, we processed almost 4,000 vendor payments that were issued every month, and this is current. We bill over 7,000 utility accounts are billed monthly, and over 180 employees are paid biweekly. So our goals for next year, currently we have been working on implementing a new budgeting software for the city. It's called OpenGov. And we are working to get our budget book for this year, the manager's budget in this software. So you'll be seeing a different look to the budget book and the budget message this year. But we're fully rolling it out to the rest of staff to use for budgeting next fiscal year. So we're gonna, that's a big goal of ours for next year. We also, a goal is to continue to receive the GFOA certificates of achievement, both of them for fiscal year '24. Have another clean audit, continue to pay vendors and employees accurately and timely, and continue to bill for utility services accurately. And I'm not asking for any positions. I'm not asking for any capital. I didn't have any major changes to my budget. So this is the end of my presentation. Finance, we work as a team. We get a lot done with very small staff compared to all the transactions and things that we do. So I feel like the finance is a great team. And so that's it. That's the end. So do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Richard?
Well, that concludes our presentations for today, and we'll be back next Thursday for the next group. I want to say thank you to all of our department directors and Preston and Daphne for all the work for what you saw today. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Meeting's adjourned.